Welcome to today's post-surf session. So this is a nice chilled one, a bit of a stretch and move, low energy level required. We're going to get lots of deep mobility work done, so it's ideal for after a big long surf, and it's a great session to think about in between surfs as well. Okay, so we'll need no equipment today, just you and a mat. And we're going to start by putting our feet into a nice wide stance. So as we come into wide stance, we're going to be here for a few moves. So make sure your feet are relatively parallel. We don't want to assist upon it, but no more turn out than you really need. Keep those toes roughly facing forward. And what we're going to do is from this wide stance, we're going to use a knee circle and we're going to keep drifting over to that side. So essentially we're going to end up having a nice little groin stretch over here, and we're going to keep that groin stretch on as we grind out a few knee circles over here. So just keep that going for me for a few repetitions. And then we'll take that movement and we'll pop it over to the other side. So we're going to bend the other knee, get that groin stretch engaged, and then just pump around a couple of knee circles. So finer points of detail we want to think about is maintaining the foot on the floor as the knee circle's going round, and trying to keep the body upright but over to the circling knee as far as we can. Come back up again, and let's do that once to the other side. So into a nice little groin stretch. Don't let your bum pop out behind you. Don't let your foot roll off the floor. Just go for early engagement of stretch through here, and then that knee gets circling again. And just keep that knee grinding through, making sure the ball of the foot on the circling leg is staying down onto the floor. All right, 2 more circles on that side. Wonderful. And then let's stick that over onto the other leg. So nice deep knee bend. Keep the bum tucked in. Keep the back up nice and tall. And then circle that knee. Brilliant. So 4 more of them. Last one. Brilliant. Okay, so from there, we're going to give the upper half of our body a bit of a stretch from the same position. So we're still in wide stance, hands up overhead. If this is a challenge, you're going to go there. If you can do it, you're going to go for crossed wrists and palms together again, fingers interlocked or palms together, whatever you prefer. But however you've got your hands up, think really hard about reaching super tall. So dead straight elbows, fingertips as far away from the floor at all times as you can. In this position, tuck your bum underneath you a little bit, and then we're going to go right over into a big old side bend. I'm going to hang into this side, making sure I don't go forward or backwards, just straight sideways, looking for a great big pull through our side muscles. And then in that position, you're going to take 3 or 4 nice long deep breaths out. And each exhalation is an opportunity to just dive a little further into the stretch, just looking for a big old pull, armpit to hip. 1 more breath on this side. Back up to the middle, and let's go out to the other side. So again, the real trick here is just making sure your belly doesn't pop forward or your bum doesn't pop out behind you. And then the final way you can go wrong is by sort of ending up twisting in towards the ground. So eyes out the front, straight over to the side, 3 or 4 big deep breaths. Back up. 3 more breaths to each side. So right over to this side again. And 3 big exhales. And with each exhale, trying to grab another degree or 2 of movement. Back up to the middle. 3 breaths to the other side. Lovely. Back up. Hands come down, and we're going to bend the knees a little bit in our wide stance, and from there we're just going to take a hang down towards the ground. So moving the most efficient way you can. We don't want it to be legs straight hanging into our hamstrings, so a little bit of knee bend, but after that just think about using your hips and your back as naturally as you can to get your chest and head as low to the floor as you can. And then once we're down into this position, we're going to take a walk out towards one foot, and we're going to go as far round as we can, right to the outside of the foot, so we're really pressing into the hip on this side. And then from there, just going to bring that hanging motion round to the other side, and a nice little sort of bouncing, pumping movement as we go, just so we're getting everything to relax and unwind the tension through lower back, bum muscles, backs of legs, basically. All right, let's go back over to the leg you started on. And then this time you're just going to stop on top of that leg and think about trying to squeeze your ribs right down onto your thigh, so you're closing the hip entirely on that side, and just be over there for a couple of seconds. And then come out of that, gently bounce over to the other side, keeping bum relatively high, bit of tension down the backs of the legs, but the knees are soft. Right over onto the other hip, close those ribs to the thigh again, and just stay there for a few seconds of stretch. Brilliant. Okay, so now we're going to come hands to the middle. Bend your knees enough that you can get your fingertips or your knuckles comfortably on the floor like this. And then in this position, we're going to think about pulling the chest down towards the floor, and then gently straightening one knee and letting it relax, and then gently straightening the other knee. And my challenge is to keep my spine as low and as relaxed and as still as I can as the knee extends. So what we don't want to feel is too much pulled up by the knee extension. Make the knee movement small enough that you are able to keep that chest down and really engage, stretch through the back of the leg here. Switch legs. So we're just pulsing for a few seconds, maybe 5 to 10 seconds worth of effort on one side, and then 5 to 10 seconds worth of effort on the other side. Every few reps, you're going to pause in the middle and just think about pulling that chest a little lower down towards the floor before the next round of knee pumps. So just one side, then the other. Extend the knee, stretch the back of the leg, hold it for a couple of seconds, let it go, switch to the other side. Just keep that going for another 20 seconds or so. All right, so we're going to stand right up, and then the next thing we're going to do is drop right down into our toe squat. So just get those knees fully bent, and then in this position, what we're doing is just rocking between the big toe on one side and the big toe on the other side, just to really stretch out the big toe, but it will then pull right up through the whole bottom of the foot. So we're just going to tap that out a couple of times like so. And then we're going to add a little bit of rotation. So we're going to spin around so that we can sit back onto one heel and squeeze forward over one ankle. And then from there, we can come up, twist around to the other side, and sit into the same position the other way. So sitting down onto the heel at the back, keeping the heel down on the front leg so that we can squeeze into the ankle bend on that side, and just give your feet a little treat for a second. So one way, spin it around, same thing the other way. And just take note of any excess tension underneath the big toe or through the front of the ankles. They are not places we want to be tight as surfers. Keep those feet super mobile and robust, and the rest of your leg will thank you for it. Okay, so when you've had enough of those, what we're going to do is come into 4-point kneeling and tuck toes under or stick them on the floor. Whichever feels more comfortable, doesn't matter too much. From there, we want to make sure our length is decent, right? We don't want to start this too short, otherwise we just won't be able to generate any useful stretch. So hands are further forward than your face is, and then from there, we're just sitting right back, leaving the hands stuck to the floor, resting back into the heels, keeping the arms relaxed and straight. Head can fall down towards the floor, and we're just squishing down and letting everything relax out into this position. And just stay there for 3 nice long exhales, and feel each exhalation allow you to soften your tummy and let your back round a little bit more fully. So you're just trying to off all your muscles in this position. 1 more breath. And now we're going to come up out of that. Leave your knees where they are, leave your hands where they are, and we're just going to push the hips down through and onto the floor. We want to try and get all of the legs down so that it's the back that's being pushed up into extension. Once I'm in this position, I want to think about trying to unshrug my shoulders. So I'm pulling my shoulder blades back and then pushing the ground away to lift the head up a little bit higher and really feel the stretch through the front of the trunk. So you've got to relax your guts in order to let your back really open up into extension. Stay there for a couple of breaths. And then we're going to come back up. And this time, as we sit back into our lion stretch, we're going to move one hand over. So take your left hand over to where your right hand is. Use your right hand to lock your left wrist in place. And then as you sit back, you're going to emphasize going towards left butt towards left heel and look for a big stretch down the lat on the outside of the body here. So when our shoulders are tight after surfing, it's often primarily these lat muscles that have really taken the punishment and are feeling tight and fatigued. So it's a brilliant way just to decompress the shoulder after lots of paddling. And again, breathing out for nice long out breaths to really maximize how much we relax into the stretch. So we're going to come back out of that, unwind the hands back to where they were and go right back into that cobra again. So pressing hips down towards the floor, and then once the hips are down, engaging the arms to push the ground away and lift the head and shoulders clear. So we want to make sure we feel like we've got a neck in this position as opposed to being shrugged up like this. So this time, once we pushed back, we found our neck. We're going to look right round over one shoulder, try and see your heels behind you, and then look right round over the other shoulder. Try and see your heels behind you on the other side. Brilliant. 2 more head rotations. So look one way, look the other way. Try and keep the rest of the spine pretty still as the head does all the work to extend the visual field. Come back up again. So we're going right hand under left this time and sitting right back into that wonky lion stretch position and pushing right hip out to really get that stretch down your right hand side of the back this time. Long exhales. Every exhale is an opportunity to relax a little more and engage what we're trying to stretch a little bit more. Fantastic. Okay, one last time, we're going to come up into our lion position. Our cobra position, here. If this is challenging enough, just do it the way we've been doing it. If that felt relatively easy the last time through, this time we're just going to pop the big toes down onto the floor and we're going to come up, and then rather than resting the legs down, we're essentially going to hang the whole body between the toes and the hands, arms are still straight, pressing the ground away. Make sure your neck's free to turn. Look over one shoulder, look over the other shoulder. Couple more. Really challenges whether you can fully relax stomach and front hip muscles. 2 more rotations. And then we're going to come up and sit right back onto our heels. So you can sit back with toes like this, or you can sit back with toes like this. Really doesn't matter for this next one. If neither is comfortable, stick enough padding and cushions either under this space here or in this space here so that you can comfortably sit back onto your hands. And we're going to go for a wrist flexor stretch. So when we're paddling, our hands aren't working that hard, but we have this constant effort towards gripping. So one thing you see in a lot of people who surf a lot's arms is they're pretty tight through the muscles of wrist flexion. And this is our kind of commonly done stretch, which is okay, and is a quick out the back kind of way to relieve the tension. Is not bad at all. But when we've got a floor to press onto, we can create way more leverage if we put our hands down on the floor, ideally middle finger facing straight back towards the knee, but as rotated round so that your wrists are out the front as much as you possibly can. And then from there, you're going to take a moment to press the ground away. And then once you press the ground away, you're going to sit back into your heels, keeping the base of the palm down on the floor. So no peeling up of the hands like this. We want to leave the hands right down and sit back into this. Fingers are straight and spread wide on the floor. Keep putting some energy into pressing the ground away. And just feel that big old stretch through the front of the forearms. Just going to sit into that and wonder why we haven't been doing this stretch more often. And then back out again. So just to make it slightly harder on the next rep, hands can go away from your knees a little bit and spread those fingers really wide. So try and get your little finger and your thumb as far apart as possible. Make sure all your fingers are laid out, spread and flat to the floor. And then as you sit back, get this roaring stretch through the front of your forearms. Once you've done it a few times with your whole palms down, we can have a little look at just peeling up as far as the kind of base of the fingers. So we'll just get into a slightly different muscle group as we do that. And it's just hang on and try and relax and just sit into it as a really, really useful stretch. And it's an important one. Our grip and our shoulders rotator cuff are kind of fundamentally linked. So if you have really tight grip, you will struggle to have happy and healthy shoulder rotation and rotator cuff function. So if you do all the strengthening work in the world, nothing really seems to actually get rid of your shoulder pain. Sometimes it's the tension down at the bottom of the arm that's really messing up what's happening up top. So if you find that really difficult, do work on it. It's also one of those things, the more manual your job is and the more you involve gripping and picking frequently as part of what you do, the more likely you are to be really tight through these muscles. So it is one of those stretches that doesn't get done nearly enough. Okay, inflammation burst over. Right, so now what we're going to do is a couple of shoulder circles. So kind of active mobility up at the shoulder end. You're holding your hand out. You're thinking about this point here. You're going to pull it back, lift it up, push it forward, pull it down. And then if you can draw those 4 corners, then you should be able to set up this motion of scapular circle. So I'm trying to minimize movement at the hand end and maximize movement at the shoulder end. And this is basically how we don't make arms work. We almost always think about where our hand is and we're moving with the intention of the hand being the kind of focus of the movement. So this is weird and challenging because it inverts that bias and makes you really think about using your shoulder blade as the primary end of movement. So the hand should only really need to slide backwards and forward in space, and it's the shoulder that's going round in the circle. So let's have a few of those on the other arm now. We want to try and keep the body still, so a hand on the chest is not a bad idea to monitor that. We've got up, down, forward, back, and then we can link those 4 points together for a nice isolated shoulder blade circle. So isolated away from the joints around about it basically means not inducing too much roll and sway of the body to make the movement happen, and we shouldn't be getting elbow bend flowing into this movement. So lock the elbow, lock the chest, and draw that circle a couple more times with the shoulder blade. And then let's go 2 arms out together, and we'll go backward circles synchronized. So at the same time, making the same circle. Crunching, grinding, it's just biological rust coming off your body. You'll be better on the other side of it. It is no reason to stop, but they are movements that people find really difficult, and some people will notice quite sharp pains as they go through these shoulder blade movements. Keep the circles of the shoulder blade small enough that they're grindy and clunky and uncomfortable, but they shouldn't be causing sharp pain or fizzing down your fingers or anything like that. Don't be daft, basically. Okay, right, so since we're in this position, we're going to get our mid-back moving a little bit. So staying sat down on our heels, again, doesn't really matter which position you're in or you choose for this exercise. Hands are right in front of knees this time. Elbows are nice and straight. And we're going to think about basically just rounding and curving the spine as far as we can. So we're looking down, we're rounding our upper back, keeping our hands on the floor, and keeping our butt on our heels. And then that takes us to our end range of upper back bend. And then from there, we're going to go the opposite way and go into upper back and neck extend. So my bum stays on my heels, my elbows stay straight, my chest comes down, forward and out the front, and I pull my head back up into extension. Hold that position for a couple of seconds, and then go right back to where we were a minute ago. Round into flexion, so chin down to chest, upper back rounding. We can think about breathing out and looking down to really maximize this position here. And once you reach the end, just stay there for a few seconds. And now we're going to unfurl out into extension, this time thinking about breathing in, looking up, eyeballs up in their sockets, trying to see your fringe and eyebrows, sucking the air in, reaching the whole back into extension. Hold that effort for a few seconds, and then round and back into flexion. And you can keep going for as long as you like. We'll do 2 more rounds here just now. So down into flexion, exhaling, looking down, trying to switch everything off and feel the stretch all the way from the middle of the rib cage right up to the back of the head. Actively pull your chin to your chest, keep your jaw shut as you do so. And then come back out, suck the air in, look up, extend, push the sternum right out the front of the body, keep the elbows nice and straight, keep sitting on the heels, look for that feeling of about to cramp in your back muscles as you're pulling really hard up into extension. And then one more time, down into our flexion position. And that is a lovely way to move the upper back. Another really important way to move the upper back is through rotation. So that's what we're doing next. So from our sat back on heels position, we're going to go one forearm down on the floor and one hand behind the head. The forearm on the floor is basically right between your knees. So we're forming a triangle here, putting the other hand behind the head, and then we're just going to say, watch the elbow go to the sky. So you just keep your eyes on your elbow, your forearm on the ground, and you reach your elbow up as high as you can, and you try and chase it with your eyeballs into an active upper back extension. Hold the effort for a few seconds, come down, switch which elbow is on the floor, put the other hand behind the head,
lift the elbow towards the ceiling, keep the other elbow on the ground, and drive that movement from your and right in the middle of your spine. Hold that effort for a couple of seconds, slowly back down again, and then let's do that once more on either side. Lifting up, looking as I go, keeping the elbow grounded, keeping the bum right back on the heels. So it's all about the shoulder blade and the upper back, making the effort to extend and open. One more time on the other side. Right up, right round, to the top. Hold that position for a couple of breaths. Come back round again. Now we're just going to finish by resting down into a really, really chilled child's pose position. So I want to be head rested. Hands can go there if it's a reach to the floor. Hands can go by your side. I'm just going to stay here. And in this position, what we want to work on is a couple of long exhales. So essentially, we're going to just take a breath in, and then we're going to exhale. And we're going to keep exhaling into a bit of active pushing air out. And then as you breathe in, just let it happen passively. Just breathe it till the air stops coming in, and then actively push out again. You keep that going and think of every out breath being slightly longer and more effortful than every in breath. And slowly we'll take our lungs down to close to empty. And a really lovely way to finish movement sessions like this is with a couple of expiration holds. Fantastic for improving your hold down resilience as well. So at the end of an out breath, you're going to hold your breath until it feels a little uncomfortable. When you're ready, let the air back in, only to neutral, and then actively push all the air out again, right down to empty. Hold your breath on empty as long as feels comfortable. When you breathe in, try and only breathe in passively, so you just relax. Let the air rush in. Don't actively grab any more air in. Don't use any effort to inspire. Put all your effort into expiration. Don't make yourself dizzy, but just keep that going. And when you're done with that, you're done for today.